Hi everybody, Barb Shaffron here from Shaffron Herbals, live from my gardens, and here I'm in my echinacea patch where I have about 30 echinacea plants. These are the plants. I use their roots, leaves, and flowers to make echinacea tinctures and teas, which are immune boosters. A lot of people know about echinacea. It's in a lot of popular preparations to help fight colds. But what you might not know is that echinacea is also an anti-inflammatory, and that's why it's really good in salves. So today I'm going to make a healing salve that's going to have echinacea, plantain, chamomile, and the last one, comfrey. And these are all great for the skin, and they're great for healing any itchy skin, any bug bites, any kind of poison oak, any kind of skin irritation. This salve will really help. So the first herb that's going to be in my healing salve is going to be echinacea. And echinacea is also called purple coneflower. And it's called purple coneflower because the flowers turn into these cones. It starts out all flat, like almost like a daisy, and then it turns into these cones, and the seeds as they dry are really sharp and prickly. And what I use for medicinal purposes is I use the dried flowers, I use the dried roots, and I use the dried leaves, and I mash them all up together in a food processor. So the second herb that we're going to use in our healing salve is plantain. Now this isn't the plantain that looks like the banana that we eat. That's a different plantain. This plantain, we have a broad leaf and a narrow leaf, and most of the time it's found growing amongst grass, and it's kind of, most people don't know that it's very nutritious and it's also very healing. So it has a little seed pod that comes up, and when you pick it, you want to get a shovel and you want to try to pull it out so that you can be sure to get the roots. I just did this the hard way, but you want the whole plant. You want the leaves, you want the seeds. I use the seeds too, and the roots. And again, I'm going to wash it, leave it sit to dry, chop up these roots, chop up these dried leaves and these dried seeds in a food processor, and then I will use the plantain to make an infused oil. The other option you have is to dry it, let it dry, not chop it up in the food processor, and just leave it whole and dry. Stick it in your mason jars, add your oil to make your infused oils. And if you want more information on infused oils, be sure to check out my how to make rose and lavender infused oil, and I also have another video on how to make peppermint infused oil, and you're going to use those same principles to make a plantain infused oil, which we'll use in the salve. So now I'm here at my part of my garden where I have my lavender, which is a little thirsty and dry. You can see I have the seeds here, the buds, that I'm going to wait till they dry a little bit more. I'm going to be picking them off soon. I do use the lavender for skin oils as well, make infused oils. And again, I did already make a video on the rose and lavender infused oil. But growing right next to the lavender is my comfrey. And you'll notice comfrey has these gigantic leaves. They have a very rough texture to them. And I made a video on comfrey oil with comfrey and purslane, how to make a comfrey glyceride. So be sure to check out that video for more details about comfrey. But comfrey used to be called knit bone because when a soldier would have a wound, they would chew it up, the leaf, and then they would put that on a wound, and it would help heal bones. So it has a ton of calcium in it. It's also anti-inflammatory. So we're going to use some comfrey also in our healing salve. Alright, so here I am in my little chamomile patch. I have 3 little baby chamomile plants I planted this year. My other ones died after a few years, so I have some new Roman chamomile here. And chamomile smells so good. It's such a great plant to help you sleep. It's great for flavoring other teas. It's got a nice fresh taste. You can also use the tea, you can dab it on your skin to help with inflammation. And that's why I'm using the chamomile infused oil in my healing salve to help with inflammation. But an interesting plant that's growing right next to it that we're not going to put into the salve for a reason I will tell you is helichrysum. I have 2 different kinds. One has longer leaves, one has shorter leaves. So this is also called immortelle because these yellow flowers on the helichrysum, they never change color. They always stay this color even when they're dry. So that's why helichrysum is a fantastic herb for the skin. It grows wild in Italy. But I don't use it in the salve because it smells like curry. The other name for it is called the curry plant. So if you use it for a skin salve or in a skin oil, it ends up smelling like Indian food, which I love Indian food, but sometimes you don't want to walk around smelling like curry. So we don't really use this like this in a oil. What I recommend to use helichrysum, which is fabulous for the skin, use the essential oil of helichrysum, and then you won't have that curry smell. So here we are in my apothecary. I have all of my essential oils, all of my infused oils. I have my dry herbs here. I'm just going to pull my echinacea infused in grapeseed, my comfrey infused in safflower, my plantain infused in safflower, and my lavender and chamomile infused in almond oil together with some beeswax, and I'm going to head up to the kitchen to make a salve. So here I am in my kitchen. I have filled this pot with water about a quarter of the way. I have it on high heat, and then I'm using my double boiler, which is comprised of a pot of boiling water, something like a sieve, and then another bowl that you're actually going to put the wax in. So we're not putting the wax directly on heat. We're using a double boiler so that it doesn't get too hot as it melts. All right. So the ratio when you make a salve is half the amount of beeswax as you use oils. So that's the general rule of thumb. So if I use a quarter cup of beeswax, I'm going to use a half a cup of oils. In this case, I'm going to use a cup of oils and a half a cup of beeswax. Okay, so I used a quarter cup of each of my 4 different oils. So I have 1 cup of oil, and I'm going to mix that with half the amount of beeswax, so that's a half a cup of the beeswax. And I really prefer these pellets to the big blocks because they're just so much easier to measure. Now you might be saying, oh, she's using solid measuring cup half as much as liquid measuring cup. Yeah, I know there's some differences, but this is just kind of the ratio that I use, and it seems to work out okay. Okay, so all the beeswax has melted. I'm going to turn off the heat. And now I'm going to add my 1 cup of oil to my half a cup of beeswax. You can see that the wax is kind of solidifying from the temperature of the oil. So actually I am going to turn the heat right back on. And we're going to let that turn into all liquid again. The last thing is to add some essential oil. I like to add lavender essential oil. I'm using Whole Foods brand because the scent of the comfrey and the plantain is very earthy and doesn't really smell so good to the senses. So you could use any essential oil to scent it. Helichrysum would be good, lavender would be good, frankincense would be good because they're all good for the skin. I prefer lavender because it would actually be helpful for burns as well. So if you use this salve on a burn, it would be more effective with the lavender oil. And I'm being generous with the lavender oil because I want my salve to smell more like lavender than the plantain and the comfrey. And so now let's go down and review. Okay, so today we made a healing salve, and it's a healing salve because it's healing for the skin, because echinacea, chamomile, lavender, plantain, and comfrey are all great for the skin. Chamomile is anti-inflammatory, lavender helps the cells regrow, plantain is also anti-inflammatory, comfrey helps things to regrow, and echinacea is a combination of all of those. So these are powerful combinations. Sometimes people will make a salve with just comfrey or just plantain. So to have this powerful healing salve is going to be fantastic for people who have rashes, any kind of allergic reaction, a scratch, a wound, a burn. This salve will be fantastic for healing. How did we do this today? What are the steps? Okay, the first one is to make or gather the infused oils that you would like. Okay, so we're doing a skin salve. We gathered infused oils that are beneficial for the skin. The second one is to take beeswax. I prefer the pellets because they melt better. Okay, you're going to put the beeswax in a double boiler until melted. Okay, and then finally you will turn off heat and then you're going to add oil. Okay, so for today what we did is the formula we have used is 1/2 the quantity of oils is how much beeswax you have. So let me repeat that. So if today I used 1 cup of oils to 1/2 cup beeswax. Now you can adjust this, you can test it by dipping it in a spoon, putting the spoon in the fridge for a little bit so you can see how hard or thick your salve is. If it's too hard to get out and spread because you put too much beeswax, you're gonna wanna add some oil. If it's too runny, then you're gonna wanna add some beeswax. So you can tweak it a little bit. This isn't, you don't have to, we're kind of like a folk remedy here. We don't have to be precise. We can do it to what we like. Okay? Making a healing salve is the scent. And this is of course optional, but sometimes when you're using earthy herbs like plantain and comfrey, they don't smell so great. So I added a generous amount of lavender essential oil, but you could actually use any kind of essential oil like helichrysum or frankincense because they're also very good for the skin. What you don't want to use is a citrus oil like an orange, a lemon, or a grapefruit or a bergamot because that's going to cause photosensitivity and someone could get a sunburn on an already delicate area. So no citrus oils. Lavender is kind of the preferred because it also helps heal burns, so it's kind of nice to put that in your healing salve. So here's one last thing of bonus knowledge. I find this word really cool. It's called unguent. This is a word they used back in the 1800s, and it actually means salve. So you're actually making a healing unguent. How about that one? All right, until next time, Barbara Shafran signing off. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them.